Hello wonderful people, you're welcome back to the channel. This is Uglo Fashion and thank you so much for stopping by. In our tutorial class today, I'll be sharing the making of this drawstring kimono. So please stay tuned and enjoy the tutorial. Thank you. For this tutorial class, I made use of this Ankara print. It's 3 yards and also the edge here. I really like this fabric because of the edge. So I use the edge for the collar side, and to cut it out I folded the fabric into two. I ensured that I cut the edge separately. It's just 4 inches. I measure 4 inches from the edge and I cut it out. Next I proceed to measure the length of the kimono, which is 40 inches, and I added 2 inches for M, which in total makes it 42 inches. Back to the starting point, I measure shoulder to nipple point, which is 10 inches, shoulder to under bust 13 inches, shoulder to half length 16 inches, shoulder to hip length I used 24.5, shoulder to kimono length, like I said earlier, it's 40 and I added 2 inches for M. So that's that. The next is to measure the shoulder, and the shoulder circumference is 15 inches divided by 2 will give 7.5 inches, and I proceed to mark the 7.5 inches. From the 7.5 inches I came down by 7 inches for the armhole, and I ruled that out and also connect it back to the 7.5 inches. Like I said, it's for the armhole. Next I place the tape back still on the 7.5 inches, and I measured 4.5 inches downward, and on the 4.5 inches I marked 1 inch inward. Then I used my curve ruler to connect the armhole. I ensure the curve ruler is well placed on the 1 inches I marked inward, and I curved everything out. So this is the armhole here. Next I proceed to mark the circumference of the bust point, which is 36 divided by 4, under bust 30 divided by 4, half length 30 divided by 4 as well, and for the hip, the circumference of the hip is 40 divided by 4, and whatever I used for the hip I also use it at the M as well, and I connected the lines together. Next I proceed to the armhole curve side, and I measure the 9 inches I have at the bust point. I added 1 inch to it, and I marked the 10 inches at the armhole side, just to connect it to the armhole side. So now for the allowance, I used 1 inch for ease and 1 inch for normal allowance. So for this type of kimono, you can make use of your hip measurement. You can use the hip measurement for the nipple points, under bust, half length. You can use your hip measurement all through, instead of you coughing out your shape the way I did mine. But because I'm the skinny type, I would like it to have my normal shape out. That's why I used my body's measurement. You can actually use your hip measurement all through if you want it very free. Next I proceed to mark the neckline, which is 3 inches, and at the shoulder side, at the armhole, I marked 1 inch downward. That's the shoulder slope. And also at the neckline I came back there and I marked 1.5 inches for the length of the neckline and cuff it out, and I proceed to cut everything out. The first pattern I cut is the back. Next I folded the remaining fabric on the table. So I have the joint part. You can see the joint part on my left hand side and the open part on my right hand side. So it's the open part now I'm going to place the back pattern on, and I will ensure they are equal. Just the only difference is the opening, nothing else. Next I proceed to cut them equally, and I separated the back pattern from the front. For the front neckline, you know, I used 3 inches for the width of the back, and also I will still maintain the 3 inches, but for the length I used 7 inches. Remember, I used 1.5 for the back, for the length, but for the front I used 7 inches. This one is optional, you can use more than that. And after the 7.5 inches at the middle, I proceed to measure 1.5 inches. You know it has cape, so that's why I measure 1.5 inches. And if you notice, I started the 1.5 inches from the 7 inches neckline, and I roll it down and also connect it back to the 3 inches. I blend it well to the 3 inches. You can see the way I did it. This is 3 inches for the neckline, and after that I measure 7 inches. I reeled the 7 inches out. I connected it with slant. Next, I placed it back on the 7 inches. I marked 1.5 inch downward and blend it like this back to the 3 inches. Next, I cut it out. I later placed my tape at the hem and measured 10 inches upward, but eventually realized that the 10 inches was too small, so I added like 4 inches to it. But if you are trying to make your own drawstring, you can just start, let's say, a few inches after the hip length, like 2-3 inches after the hip length. Then you notch that particular area, so that's where the drawstring will be. This is the other pattern I cut for the cape. I proceed to measure for the cape or collar, I don't know. I measured the 4 inches and I added interface to it, you can see. So you know, I initially cut out 1.5 inches from the front, so I'll be replacing it with the collar now. The collar is 2 inches when it's on fold, but 4 inches when it's not on fold. Next, I place the front and the back pattern on each other, the front bodies and the back bodies on each other, and I proceed to stitch the shoulders together. After the stitch, I notch the neckline of the back bodies, and also the collar. I've stitched it together, then unfold and I fold it into 2 and notch the middle as well. Actually, this does not have a specific length. If you want to measure the length, you can just start from the hem of the front and go round to the other hem of the front. But I just decided to cut mine very long, and after pinning and stitching, I cut out the remaining excess. Now this is what it looks like after stitching. You can see. Next is to stitch the sides together. So I proceed to stitch the edges of the back and the front. I first pinned, then I stitch. So I stopped the stitching where I notched for the drawstring. I stopped it there. Next, I picked the hem and I folded it this way. Just fold, you know, I left 2 inches for hem, so I folded the 2 inches this way and I stitched on it. So first of all, I pinned it round. I pinned all the hem and proceed to the machine to stitch. So after stitching the hem, I proceed to stitch the open part, which is for the drawstring. I folded it this way, pinned it down and proceed to the machine to stitch. Now you can see the result after stitching. Next, for the string, I measured 1.5 inches by 40 inches, but later realized that the 40 inches was too long, because the 40 inches I cut it into 2. You know, it's in pair now, so I cut it into 2. But I later realized that the 20 inches I cut was too much. I reduced it. You will see the part where I reduced it in the video as time goes on. Then I folded it this way, just like a bias tape, and I proceed to the machine to stitch. So this is it after stitching, and I cut the excess. Like I said, I cut it into two and insert it inside the hole. You can see the way I did it. Then after fixing it into the hole, I top stitched on it so that the string will not fall back or run back outside. Then I just draw the string and tie the knot. So this is where I eventually cut the excess, because you can see the string is too long, so I had to cut parts out. For the sleeve, I picked the remaining part of the fabric, I folded it into two, and as you can see, the sleeve also has band. So the measurement I worked with is 10 inches. I used 2 inches for band and 8 inches for the main sleeve, and I added ½ inch to the 8 inch. This will serve as the hem allowance, which I'll use to connect the band. I ruled that out. Next, I placed the tape back to the starting point, and from there I measured 5 inch, that's the bicep, and also measured 2 inches, that's the cap of the sleeve, and I ruled them out accordingly. Sorry, I used 2.5 actually, and I ruled them out. So at the starting point, I measured 3.5 inches and just curve it this way. That's the cap, so I curve it that way. And at the bicep, I measured the circumference of the sleeve, which is 13 inches. I added 1 inch for ease and also 1 inch for allowance, which makes it 8.5 in total, and I slant it back to the cap side. And for the hem, I still maintain the same measurement I used at the bicep. Then I proceed to cut it out. So this is what we have, and also I cut the band. I used 4 inches, while on fold it becomes 2 inches. I'll fold the band. I proceed to stitch the band and the sleeve together, and also notch the middle of the sleeve. So this is what we have at the end of the day. I also stitched the allowance I added, and next I stitched the sleeve to the armhole of the kimono. Thank you very much for watching this video to the end. Please, if you haven't subscribed, do so, and like and share the video as well. See you in my next video. Bye.